Okay, hey guys, latest title in my collection of banned films, The Bunny Game. It's the most recently banned film by the BBFC. They banned it a few months ago because of the overall theme of abuse, lack of character development, etc. I think they've told the company they can resubmit it if they want to try again after cutting material out, but they have said they don't feel that they will be successful, although to be fair that's what they said with Human Centipede 2 when they did eventually pass that. Watched it a couple of hours ago, and I can understand why the BBFC saw fit to ban it. It's as with Grotesque, which was banned in 2009, there's no characterization, hardly any characterization at all. The films are around about an hour and 15 minutes long, and pretty much all of that is, full of the abuse of the main character as a prostitute. Perhaps the most shocking scene, in my opinion, the most shocking scene is literally the opening sequence. It's a blowjob sequence. She's a prostitute, so it's not rape, it's not forced, but it's forceful. Interestingly, it does appear to be real, genuine sex. You see the guy's penis; it looks like it is his real penis. If it's a prosthetic, then it's a very good one, which is why it was kind of shocking to me. Even though here in the UK now at 18 you can see the erect penis, they finally gotten over that final taboo, as it were, but it's still pretty rare. This scene is also kind of brutal. You're sort of forcing it into her mouth and she's choking. I know the BBFC will even cut choking during fellatio in restricted 18 hardcore pornography, so I think if they had passed this at all, that would definitely have been taken out. From then on in, the film kind of follows this prostitute who's clearly very upset. She's continually portrayed as being abused by her clients and crying in the shower or on the street, having a really bad time of it, which obviously, as you'll predict, gets even worse when she's picked up by an anonymous trucker who very quickly subdues her and then takes her out into the wastelands, sticks her in the back of his truck, and it basically abuses her, chains her up to the wall and torments her throughout the rest of the film. So again, story-wise, there's virtually no story. It's basically pornography to an extent. August Underground's Mordom, to a slightly lesser extent, the Human Centipede 2, Grotesque, that kind of thing. It is centered around torture porn. But unlike Hostel and the Saw films, there's no real story or characterization. It's the focus is much more on the torture and degradation of the main character rather than their attempts to escape. And in most cases in contemporary horror, they'll succeed in finally escaping, and there we go. I say contemporary horror, but you can go back to the 70s, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that kind of thing. They'll tend to get away. In films such as these nowadays, they don't. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but she doesn't exactly come to a happy ending. As for the extremity of the film, and I kind of saw this, to me this makes up the third in the trilogy of recently banned or heavily censored films here in the UK, starting with a Serbian film in 2010, you can check my other review, and then going on to the Human Centipede, which was initially rejected, and then 6 months later BBC changed their mind, very suspicious, and passed it with 2.5 minutes of cuts. And now finally The Bunny Game, which was banned just after the BBFC decided to release a censored version of the Human Centipede 2. Well, I must say, as pleased as I am to get hold of this, it's Region 2, it's a Swedish release yet again. A Serbian film was a Swedish release, the first official release in the world that was fully uncut. Same again here, first official release worldwide. As far as I'm aware, currently this is the only official release worldwide. I've got the DVD, I'm assuming there's a Blu-ray as well. Don't know if you can make this out, but this is actually unrated. A Serbian film, amazingly, was a 15 in Sweden, which I still can't get past. This is actually unrated, although it is far less explicit than a Serbian film, so I don't really get that. Got the warning on the front. I can't read Swedish, but it's basically saying it's banned in England, forbidden. However, all this, even with all of this, this is, I must say, and I don't want to say this, I didn't want to say it, I was really pleased to get hold of it, it's a great addition to the collection, but I was disappointed with this film. In my opinion, it's not deserving of those 5 stars. The bunny game, in my opinion, it is boring. It starts off promisingly. You've got that shocking opening scene with the blowjob, which I feel remains one of the most shocking scenes in the film, simply because it's so explicit and takes you by surprise. It develops into, it looks interesting at the beginning. You've got the life of the prostitute and the degradation of her, and you really feel that there's something that could be built upon here. Excuse me. But really, after the guy kidnaps her, you're talking about 30 minutes into the film, she gets kidnapped. From then on in, it is her being tied up, tormented. There's a lot of quick editing, which gets irritating after a while. I've never really been a fan of that. It can be, Natural Born Killers was probably the best example of fast and, fast, quick editing out of sequence, which worked. This doesn't work. It becomes frustrating and boring. After the initial kidnap, there is surprisingly little violence, which for a film like this that has been marketed in this way and that has been banned, you would expect a lot more violence than there actually is in this film. It reminds me in a way of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, particularly the scenes towards the end, with the main, forgotten the name, but either way, the central character there, there's a lot of close-ups on her eyes and she's screaming all the time and being tormented and people laughing at her. That's kind of what this is, really. There's very little, surprisingly little violence done to her, which is what you would expect for a film that's become this controversial. And it's slow moving. You can see they're trying for style, trying to make it look good and gritty. It's black and white, same fashion as Human Centipede 2. But yeah, it becomes dull, to be quite honest, in my opinion. And believe me, I don't want to say that, but I am disappointed with this film. I've only seen it once. Maybe I'll find more to it on repeat viewings. But I really feel it's well shot, it's well acted. But at the end, you're just left frustrated, thinking there's no real story. And in this respect, that makes it boring. Sometimes there's not a story, but it's still an interesting experience. This isn't that. This is kind of boring. It's, a girl's tied up in the back of a truck. She's tortured. She's made to watch videos of herself screaming earlier on in the film, where he's filmed her doing it. She's had her clothes taken off. She's not raped. I don't want to sound disappointed. That's something I want to see, but with regards to a film that is this notorious, you would expect a bit more, a bit more violence and a bit more challenging, explicit stuff. This really isn't. It's mundane, to be honest. It's grotesque. This film is similar to Grotesque in that it was banned because it lacks a moral compass, according to the BBFC. So there's no characterization. It does focus primarily on the torture and degradation of the central character, with no real reason why. And she doesn't come to a happy ending, so it's a very dark film. However, Grotesque is much better paced. It's much more interesting. It's a rewarding experience if you're into extreme horror. This is not. This is boring. It's a real disappointment. I wanted it to be a better film. But yeah, ultimately, that's my initial feeling, is disappointment. I think it's worth getting a hold of. I got this on eBay. So far as I'm aware, it's still currently available on eBay. Whether they'll decide to ban it after a while, as they did with the Serbian film, I don't know. I got this around about 20 quid, which I don't regret buying it. It's having been banned and for the notoriety, it's worth getting hold of. But yeah, this is disappointing. As I say, the two people in it, the guy and the girl, good acting, it's believable. But it really does fall short of being notorious or worthy of repeat viewings. But it's good for the collection, worth getting hold of. However, if you're looking for something extreme in the league of a Serbian film or the Human Centipede 2 or Grotesque, that kind of thing, I feel you will be disappointed. So yeah, The Bunny Game.